Welcome back to the channel. This is The Casuals. I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and today's episode is, well, random ramblings. And gosh, I guess I'll just say today's topic rather, and it's gonna be a title name. And usually I don't come up with title names until after we finish the episode, but this one I know for sure is gonna be just a title name. And it's gonna be called "Life is Rough." And, me and Taki had been, we had discussed this before prior to even getting together and recording this episode, but yeah, life is rough. The past week, I want to say, or even 2 weeks, it's been something else. And I know it's been, very tiring for you too. So how do you feel right now, And if you want to recount the past 2 weeks too, in just terms of how you felt.
I have just been exhausted lately after work. Now that I'm doing, two and a half people's worth of jobs for one person, it gets tiring.
Underpaid and overworked.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been the same for me too. I've been underpaid and overworked. I'm pretty much in the same boat where I'm quite literally doing almost everything at my job. But really, the focus isn't really on the job. It's more like just the aspect of life, right? The past 2 weeks, I think me and Saki have talked very minimally, like barely any, conversations whatsoever between us. And that's just how life is, despite us being, best friends. There are times where we literally just don't have energy to do things together, even if we wanted to. And I think this is particularly prevalent in the adult life. I can see why adults tell you to enjoy your youth, because once you reach the stage where we're both at, where we're both working, adults, we both have responsibilities and obligations to do. Suddenly, the amount of free time that you have is shortened by a lot. And it's not, if I had to compare it, it's as if you were at a, baseball game and you're at, home base and you hit the ball and your childhood is like walking to first to, or from home to first base very slowly. Um, you just don't know, you don't mind, whatever life comes at you, you're just enjoying it most of the time. The more privileged people, I would say, are the more privileged, people who are able to grow up with a, carefree childhood. And then from, I want to say, from really middle school to, or really the school life, right? Elementary to high school is like first base to second base. And, you're still having fun, you'll be able to take in the scenery. And then comes college from third to fourth, or second to third rather, sorry. And it's going by a little bit faster. You're, interacting, you're starting to prepare for your adult world. But then once you start getting into that home stretch of third to home, suddenly everything starts accelerating. And the moment you hit home, the game's over. You're no longer allowed to have fun most of the time. Obviously, there are a lot of people who worked hard or, got to the position where they can enjoy life the way they did before, or the way they want. But for most people, we're mostly stuck with 9 to 5 jobs or 8 to 5 jobs now. And so I guess this episode is almost kind of like a warning, I guess, for young people. When adults really tell you to enjoy your youth, I think you should take it seriously in the sense that appreciate the free time that you have and the less obligations that you need to, attend to, and the less responsibilities you have if you're able to. Obviously, there are some who have no choice but to work, even in starting from teenager years of even 15 years old. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think you would have the same sentiment, wouldn't you, Saki?
Yeah, I would say literally enjoy your time before you start working, because once you start working, a lot of that time is cut. You get weekends and, some holidays here and there, but that's really it.
Yeah. And the responsibility also shifts, right? Instead of, doing well in school, you know, it turns into a job where you have to, in most cases, I would say you're not allowed to mess up. And if you do, that can cost you your entire future in terms of, your life. And in high school, whatever, junior high, elementary, you're allowed to mess up. You're there to learn from your mistakes. Work, not so much. I'm sure if you get in a good workplace where they don't mind you making mistakes as long as you learn from it, but even then, it's like you're kind of jeopardizing your own future of being able to live um, under like shelter, being able to get constant, sources of food and everything. That all really depends on you getting a job, and so you no longer have that responsibility where you can kind of look at it as if it's like, I can do other things, I can mess up. Job just says no, you're not allowed to. And so it sucks. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, especially like, I don't know, government work maybe you really can't mess up because that's a really big mess up if you actually do.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be very, I guess, careful with certain jobs,
Yeah.
I would say. Unless it's like, I wouldn't say like a super serious job, like let's say you start in fast food.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to take it like super duper seriously because,
Mm-hmm.
you're there mainly for the experience, not to like stay there your whole life to work in, fast food.
Mm-hmm.
So there it's a little more forgiving, but once you get like corporate job, that's where it gets more serious. You
Yeah.
kind of don't want to mess up because if you mess up, it can mess the company up and it just can spiral out of control just from a small mistake.
Yeah. And I do want to bring up something that I think I thought about a lot. It's just that as you get older, socializing becomes less frequent, or even just completely cut off, right? Um, Really, the people I really come in terms of in-person like contact, right? In terms of in-person uh interactions, I really only have Saki, and that's it. Like it's really just me and Saki. We're both kind of loners.
Yeah.
um, and it's not even the result of us, wanting to be loners. It's just the way that life is. People go on in their own paths, and sometimes you just don't align with theirs, and it's very rare for even others, even if your best friends to align. People have other things they want to do in life, and so um, if you combine that with the current lifestyle of having work and just going, being exhausted every day after work, suddenly the interactions become very minimal. And I think what sucks the most is that I feel like no matter how introverted I am, no matter how much I get exhausted around people, no matter how much I'd like to be alone, I think it is very true that humans are very social creatures, and without social interactions in some way or form, you would legitimately probably die without actual social interactions. Um,
Yeah, I want to piggyback off that.
mm-hmm,
It's very true because when you're first born, there uh there was like before ethics came into thing.
mm-hmm,
There was experiments where there was a bunch of newborns, and there were nurses that would for like part some of the babies they would interact, play, feed them, interact with them, and then the other half they were just fed, no
mm-hmm.
interaction, like no playing. And all the ones that were just fed, they died
Wow.
because there's no interaction. They had no social interaction with anyone. They were just fed, like literally like a pet. You know, you feed them in the morning for breakfast, you feed them in, dinner or lunch, whatever, and that's it. You don't play with it. You just leave them to do whatever, but they can't do anything. They need that social interaction, and the ones that didn't get any just died.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So it's very true that humans are very social animals.
Yeah, and I think this also, just in general, like people always say, "Oh, I'm definitely someone who doesn't need social interactions," but I feel like that's a lie because 99% of the time I'm willing to bet that 99% chance you're on the internet on some form communicating with other internet people. That is socialization. Um, People like to think. I think people narrow down socialization as in-person talking, where you're interacting with a person in front of you.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they don't realize that the internet itself is kind of a blessing, being able to interact with people all over the world. Um, and I genuinely do encourage some people, because I think I've done this one day, for one day only, really. And I'm not like a guru about this or anything. I'm not someone who's wise in this way, but I do want to challenge people to genuinely try, if they're able to, right? Go one day without any communications outside of the most minimal way, right? If you live alone, cool. If you live with your parents, you can interact with your parents minimally. Um, but don't even get on the internet to interact with people. Um, and just try living that life. And suddenly, when you are in that, you know, world where there is no human interaction, things get really weird. And you will only notice it if you really pay attention to the fact that you're not, interacting with people. And you might say, "Oh, I can read books. Oh, I can, you know, watch videos or movies." Um, and I want you to try that without even, movies or anything, or like, you can read one book, but only one book. Um, because it's only within a day after all. I'm not asking you to do it for a week straight. Because after I feel like a week, that's when that's when it hits hard with legit no human interaction. Um, Even no matter how many movies you watch, no matter how many books you read, no matter how many other forms of entertainment you do without interacting, and live streams do count um, as human interaction. So don't watch live streams. Um, you would probably start going insane. Or you would feel some extreme form of like negative feelings because you're not able to interact. You know, so when I say like humans are social creatures and they do need social interactions, it's basically impossible to go without social interactions. It is true, and I've experienced it before, and as I said before, I'm extremely introverted. 99% of the time, I'm not out seeking groups of people, or I'm not really, talkative in random places. It may seem like I talk a lot because we're recording here, but that's because it's me and Saki. We're best friends. um, I just, even despite how reclusive I am as a person, I still need human interactions. Well, do you have anything else to add in terms of I think we're similar in that sense, Saki. We're both kind of reclusive, but like we do need human interactions.
Yeah, we're pretty similar. I don't go out seeking friends. I don't go out to go to bars, to hang out with just random people. I don't usually go out at all. Just work and back. So every now and then to like the store if like we plan something. Other than that, I don't really interact that much. But yeah, it's pretty tough to go with no interaction like at all. Like
Yeah.
maybe you could do it for a day easy, but like once it gets to like a week, yeah, you'll start to feel bored. You'll feel kind of lonely, and I think eventually, yeah, you'll just go insane because there's no one to talk to. Like sometimes you'll see like homeless people just like mumbling to themselves on the street because they don't interact with anyone. They can't go on the internet. They can't go do this. They just walk around talk to themselves because
Yeah.
that's the only interaction they'll get, because a lot of people will think, oh man, this guy's crazy. Don't like go towards him. Kind of like steer away from those people.
Yeah.
That's why you see them, you think they're crazy because they just talk to themselves because there's no one that'll talk to them.
Yeah. And another thing I want to bring up is, if I had to like segue it, it's like, so, you know, do you, I guess the question would be for you, especially Saki, but I guess for anyone else who's watching or happens to watching this, how do you think your view on life came to be? Um, like, your morals or your general thought on life, what you take from, I guess, your perspective, right? Because your perspective isn't necessarily formed inside, it's formed from influences from all around you, right? And then you take those influences and then you make it into your own perspective, right? um do you know, like, I guess the question is, do you know what largely influenced your perspective on life, if there is any, or if it's just like, a combination of little things building up to one big, your final perspective?
I'd say it's a bunch of things put together. Like, honestly, like probably most common, treat people how you want to be treated,
Mm.
Don't be, an a-hole to someone expecting to be treated like a king. Like, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Just show some respect, That was like a big one, kind of a lot of it, it's not even like huge, a lot of it's huge things, but it's also a lot of small things,
Yeah.
you know? Just like, oh, if you see someone that's, let's say they dropped some of their stuff, don't just like walk by them, like look at them like, oh, they just dropped their stuff. Just take 10 seconds out of your day, ask if they need help or just try to start helping or something. It's just, it can make someone's day, just spread a little bit of happiness around. Don't just to, or like if someone like falls, ask like, oh, are you okay? Need assistance? Don't be like, ha, you fell. Like, duh, like just use your legs kind of thing. Like, well, maybe they like their leg gave out or like their knee buckled or something, they just tripped, You never know what's happening in other people's lives, so why you just kind of protect, like put yourself in their shoes kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of just a little bunch of little things kind of put together make my perspective.
And I think if I had to describe it in from what I'm hearing, is that a lot of yours is more like kind of like logical comprehension of,
Yeah.
I guess, morals in that sense, morals and ethics.
Yeah.
Um, which is interesting because I'm quite the opposite spectrum, right? I'm the more emotional side of morals and ethics, right? I view things a lot more emotionally. I don't know if I come off as it or not. I tend to be very logical in various settings, but at my core, I guess, of identity of who I am a very emotional person. And the reason why is because a lot of the, I want to say 90% of my influences come from really just manga and anime, right? And it sounds really dumb, cringe, and like eighth grader syndrome, but what I mean is that, like, I don't take lessons necessarily from heart, like, uh the power of friendship or something like that, or never give up type thing. It's not that I don't like take that to heart. What I take to heart is like the emotional response that gets elicited by scenes in manga and anime, um, whether it's tragedy or comedy or romance or life lessons, that emotion that gets elicited from, or that where it elicitates that certain emotion of either sadness, joy, or um, fear or something like that, and that feeling of either helplessness or anger or such. I took a lot of like influence from that in terms of like that kind of, I guess, direction of viewing life. It's all, I guess, one cringeworthy thing, I guess, would be was for a lot of the time in my life, I did take that kind of like generalized quote of like something like, where some cool or cringy anime scene happens where the guy's like, life is, don't take it for granted, whatever. Um, as cringy as it may seem that I took influence from that, I really did take influence, and um, I honestly feel like I came out on the better end. I feel like I'm more, I think it's called empathetic, um, to people's situation, or being able to understand, or at least get a comprehension of what people are going through most of the time. In the non-severe, cases. In severe cases, there's no way I can ever empathize with them, because each person's, unique, and the severity of what they've, are experiencing, like mental, mental struggles and everything, is a genuine hard thing to comprehend for anyone, even professionals. So, you know, because I, did not necessarily take influence from, the way you did, Saki, which is like logical influence or logical thinking and comprehension. I tend to think a lot to myself. And we've talked about this before privately, I guess, Saki, but I just want to put it out there that there are periods of time where I straight up just don't talk to Saki, and it's because I'm kind of wandering off in my own world. Like literally at times where in person I just shut off randomly. You remember those times where I just shut off randomly without talking?
Yep. It just goes silent for a little bit.
Yeah, and if I had to describe it to you, it's like my brain, like as if it's a computer trying to comprehend a like large workflow that just suddenly got shoved into their system out of nowhere, and they're trying to process it. I tend to start thinking about life out of nowhere. It just happens randomly. I don't know why. Where I contemplate about life, and this contemplation really just makes me stop and think, and just kind of like takes up my time, where I just sit still, don't like do anything, and I just think. And it's kind of weird for other people. They're just like, well, what's this dude doing? Like, but I genuinely have to stop and take my time to think about, what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it that way, and and this also comes from the fact that like I absorb so much, I guess, influence, that my thoughts become overflowing with just random thoughts, mainly like, what is life type thing. So it takes a while for me to parse out like, these feelings and information going through my head. So gosh, like I know this kind of, sidetracked, but essentially, yeah, like this whole, I recently had one for like the past 3 days where I was kind of just like lost in my thoughts, where I was just like, it might be good to talk about this in an episode. So, here we are talking about this. Rather, I guess it might be strange, might be, relatable, I don't know. But yeah, this is true rambling, this is, in its purest form, it's rambling, because after I finish thinking, like, my head kind of turns empty again, and I'm like, alright, I'm good to go. I cleaned out my engines, whatever. My fuel tank is finally empty. I can, refuel it with human interaction or something like that. So yeah, human interaction. How would you describe your, I guess, way of perceiving the amount of human interaction you can do?
Oh, geez.
Would you like me to go first to describe it?
Yes, if you have it like off the top of your head, go for it.
Yeah, so for me, a human interaction is like almost like a battery, like a phone battery. I have a certain amount. No matter how much I would like to expand or upgrade it, I just can't. And it also doesn't matter how many people are there, or how many, if it's a one-on-one or like a group of people. I run out after a certain time. Like, I want to say around 6 hours is my max. And then after that, I have to go into like hibernation mode and charge up again. That's me in a nutshell, is that like, I don't think being in a group drains me out faster than, one-on-one. I think they both equally drain me out in the same way and same rate. But at the very end, I'm just like, I can't interact with people. I need to go back and hide in my little hidey hole. Don't interact with me for like the next 12 hours. I'll get back to you soon. That's kind of my way, and I'm sure there's many people who are similar like that. But that's just me. I don't know how about you. If you're like, one big battery. For me, it's like one big battery, and then like I run off of that.
Yeah, I kind of run off the similar style. I have one large social battery, but it kind of varies. For me, it depends on who I'm with. Like bigger groups, but like with my friends, I can last, a while interacting with them.
Mm-hmm.
If it's one on one with someone I know, it lasts even longer. Bigger groups wear me out more. And
Mm-hmm.
then if it's something completely new, you got me for a good like 3 hours until I'm like so overwhelmed with new stuff, like my brain just can't comprehend anything, and my battery just shoots from 100 to 0 so super fast.
Yeah. Um, and I think it gets even like the capacity gets more and more limited, or smaller as you get older. Um, and as you like interact with less people like we do. Don't you? Would you agree? Like as you get older, your capacity gets definitely shrinks.
Yeah, like I remember when we were in like I was high school. You were probably beginning high school or middle school when we first hung out a lot over the summer.
Yeah.
We used to, hang out all day,
Yeah.
like the entire day, like 6 in the morning to like a good 12 plus hours.
Yeah.
Now it's like a couple hours, and I'm like, all right, I'm about to knock out and sleep because I am tired and exhausted now.
Yeah. And I'm the same. And it's kind of funny that that does happen. But it's just the way life is, and that's where also the title comes from. Life is rough as you get older. Um. So yeah, it's just even today where we hung out, I'm kind of exhausted. Just not because necessarily we hung out, but it's more like work has kind of killed me the last few days, and this is just a cherry on top. But I think what's most important is that despite being exhausted, the most important thing is like I still enjoy it, even if I'm exhausted. In terms of like us interacting, not necessarily my job. I don't like my job, uh, but
That's a different story.
yeah, I enjoy even if I'm exhausted. I think having that best friend really has it's certainly a blessing, I guess. Despite me being exhausted, it's always fun. I enjoy it. Um, Even if we do nothing or accomplish nothing, it's still fun. We've done that too many times where we just went around and did nothing.
Oh yeah, that's most of the time.
Yeah. Um, so yeah. Do you have anything else to add overall?
Enjoy the little things too.
Definitely, I agree.
That that's like my main thing is don't I guess one more little thing is how when you're younger you're like, "Oh, I need to be an adult. I can do whatever I want. I can make my money, do all that stuff."
Yeah.
And then you get to an adult and you're like, "Why did I think this was a good idea?" Yeah, we're kind of at that point.
Yeah.
We're like, "Yeah, let's be adults." Gets to adulthood. Why did I want to rush into this?
Yeah.
Don't rush it. Enjoy your time as an adolescent without you know a job or many big responsibilities.
I am in agreement. Um, so today's episode is a little bit shorter, but I think, that doesn't really matter because I think we did talk about a lot of things in terms of just like, not value, but just a lot of weight, I guess. Um, and I genuinely do hope that whoever happens to be listening to this in the future, that you do take heart in terms of like the advice that we say, truly cherish the times where you're not an adult and you're able to do what you want as like teenager or something, as a person who doesn't have many responsibilities if you can, because once you do start having responsibilities, almost never you're gonna get back that time back in terms of like that enjoyment and everything else. So you know I guess with a light heart, to hopefully have a lighthearted ending, I guess the one thing that you do get to have as an adult is money, but that's a small little win, I guess, overall if you're able to have that. So
Yeah, life ain't all about money.
yeah, so I'll end it here. So I'm Jin,
And I'm Zaki.
and this is the Casuals, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.